I would tell you that this is, in my belief, one of the most important votes you'll ever take. Now, some of you think that's just plain old hyperbole. I get it, but I really do. Because if we stop thinking like Republicans and Democrats, we really can be statesmen and state persons. Because this is about America. This is about not a red and blue issue. This is a red, white, and blue issue. This is about our America. We have a behemoth federal government, one that we can barely imagine, even in my young age. But growing up in the 50s and the 60s, it was never this large. It was just a little federal government. But now it's enormous. Washington is totally out of control. No one's going to deny that. Well, if you do, you're not watching the news. Washington is out of control, completely dysfunctional. We don't have three equal branches of government. They're at war with each other. We have a structural problem, though, and the structural problem is this between the states and the federal government. We states are the parent. We created the federal government. They're the child. Oops, got turned upside down there along the way. And now they are the overarching parent running for everything. You have the power to fix Washington, D.C. You do. You have the power to fix this because the founders gave you that power. You know their intent was to have very strong state legislatures. They respected the cultures of each of the states because they didn't all get along back then at all. They were very prideful of their states. So they wanted the state legislatures to be very powerful, if you want to use the word power, but to be in charge. Because why? We're actually the closest to the real people. We go home at night most nights. In the weekends, we're at home. We see them in the grocery store. They've got our cell phone number. They could come knock on the door. I mean, we're there. Try that with the federal government and see how it's working. Our founders gave us a magnificent document in the Constitution, but now we see partisan warfare. Congress's abysmal rating has 20%. That's up from 10% a few years. 2% of Americans believe that our elections work the way they're supposed to work. Congress is so gridlocked, they can't even pass a bill that would be the good for the safety and welfare of all Americans. They can't get along. There is no bipartisanship. It's no secret people are really unhappy with Washington, D.C. Those career politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, don't have the best interest of the people at heart. They have a lot of self-interest. They will never, ever, ever limit their own power. It's not human nature. Madison wrote about that in Federalist 51. Human nature. People will pull power to themselves, and they've gotten away with it. The founders gave us a device to put a stop onto it because they knew at some point we would get to this. We're there. It's our job to put a stop to it. And we have the ability to do this through Article 5. That was the ripcord in the Constitution. That sacred document. By the way, there's a lot of discussion about, oh, the Constitution, it's so sacred in every word. We just should live by the Constitution. Well, here it is, this little teeny pamphlet. You all have them, right? Just a little thing. It's not very many pages when you get down to it. That's the Constitution that you think of. See this book? I pulled it off my shelf. It's called Wit and Humor of the Ages. I don't know, I thought it was appropriate. It looked old and stuff, but it has like 700 pages. Guess what? The annotated Constitution of today is just about 5 times the size of this book. The founders, the annotated Constitution, 5 times this size. That's what we live by. So when Congress says, well, we're staying within the Constitution, sure they are. This one times 5. The Supreme Court has written the Constitution and rewritten the Constitution. It doesn't even hardly resemble this. This was supposed to be the limiting document. Remember, a limited federal government. And states' rights were allowed to, we were to have our states' rights, we were to be in charge of our states. And they are, currently, the 50 laboratories. We're not all alike. We're different from North Carolina, we're different from Georgia, and we're certainly different from California. So at this point, 15 states have passed this resolution. I talked earlier about that one top segment. 15 states have passed that. 9 states have passed it in one legislative body. Georgia certainly passed it as one of the 15, but North Carolina, their House passed it last week, just like we hopefully will do this week. It is also pending in 14 more states. We have to get to 34 states, 2/3 of the states. When the federal government is then required, Congress is required just to set the time and the place of that convention. What do constituents think about the idea of a convention of states? Well, we actually did a couple of polls here in South Carolina. One of them, 1,300, both Republicans and Democrats. I was a media researcher. I didn't do the research, but it was broken out with a very good sample across the state in every area. Republicans and Democrats represented, independents. 66% of that sample of 1,300 voters, 66% favored the Convention of States in that approach when it was explained to him. That's 2/3. Only 19% actually objected to it and didn't want it. Washington is drunk with its power. We have the power to stop this. You know, there's something that was discussed earlier in much of this dialogue about how do we control the delegates. All the other states that have done this have come back after they have passed this resolution, so it aggregates with the other states, and done specific legislation, House and Senate, signed by the governor, laying out all the rules for delegates. You know, I'm not a lawyer, some of you are. There is the law of agency, that is common law. And these people, just like your real estate agent, your insurance agent, they can't do things on your behalf that are wrong, right? They can't do it. That's the law of agency. The same here. These delegates or commissioners that we would send are our agents. You know, in Indiana, they passed a delegate rules and device about they can withcall them and they'll be under felony arrest if you don't do what the legislature says. So Mr. Rutherford had some issues about that earlier in the day. I see he's not here now, but we'll write those in to a piece of legislation and we'll debate it here and it'll all be good. Term limits is one of the main issues here. I know that's not too popular among you when we talk about it, but seriously, you know, over 80%, 85% of Americans want term limits on Congress and the federal judiciary. This is the only way we're going to get it. How about a balanced budget amendment? Yeah, they did that. They did us back when the balanced budget amendment got to about 33 states in this whole deal, and same deal like this. And guess what? Congress said, oh, no, we'll take care of it. They did us a head fake. They did a phony balanced budget thing because, you know, we're so out of whack today. I think, $28 trillion in debt?
Mr. Taylor, that's your time, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope you will consider this and vote for it. Thank you.
Question before us is adoption House Bill 3205 is amended. Roll call is required. Voted on the board's order. Time has expired. Clerk, close the polls and tabulate. For the 6642, House Bill 3205 is amended, receive second reading.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks were willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.